What's going on, guys? In today's video, we're going to be talking about some of the best setups for tomorrow. We also have some pretty big updates from none other than the Oracle of Omaha, Warren Buffett. Basically, his filing came out today. So we're going to be looking at all of the stocks he bought and sold this quarter. And on top of that, we have a pretty bold statement coming from a pretty famous hedge fund billionaire looking at the market for the rest of this year. So we have an exciting video today. Make sure to stick with us. But with that being said, Tom, let's get right into it.
Yeah, Mike, that market today was all over the place. Once again, we actually gapped up early on, sold off throughout the day, got pretty close to that 410 support again, and then started retesting that high from this morning around 413.50, around that high of day. And it's just like, man, this market is just so choppy lately, and you can kind of see the zone that I've been drawing here on the charts over the past few days. There's a big low around 410. You could even say 409 to 410. There's been lots of bounces around both of those levels. And then 413.50 to 414.50 has been a huge upper resistance. And I feel like over the next few days, Mike, we're going to finally get to maybe move out of this range. Like we've already been in it for 3 or 4 days now. I think we're going to get some good movement. We actually had some good movement today out of the AI stocks. And I even saw good movement from AMD, Micron, and a bunch of other stocks like that today, which also were kind of following some of these AI plays of the upside. But man, AI, what a run today, 23.43%. And then Upstart was another one today, 23.61%. Those two stocks really caught my eye, and it was good to see them running. They both had some individual news. It looks like Castle Lake purchased some loans from Upstart, it looks like. So keep that in mind. It's $4 billion worth of loans, though. So it looks like that's really helping Upstart today. Like we said, MU's kind of running up with some of those AI stocks. And it's just good to see, those tech stocks continuing to power forward, Mike, because I know that they've been running up a lot lately, and some are getting pretty overextended in the short term.
No doubt. So, as you mentioned, with the market overall, it's been somewhat choppy lately. But what is pretty interesting is that this week we have a pretty decent earnings lineup, especially given that we're towards the end of earnings season. We saw a lot of China stocks really power higher today and even a little bit last week. And we actually have Baidu set to report earnings tomorrow before open. And then we have Alibaba set to report earnings before open on Thursday. So, you guys can see the earnings schedule here, but these China stocks have been on a pretty big run lately. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for, stocks like JD or BIDU or BABA and, maybe even NIO, because when these China stocks run, a lot of times they all run up together and they move in a pretty big way. Like I'll tell you, a lot of times, if there's decent earnings, you can see these stocks run up, maybe 15 to 25%.
Yeah, you really can. There's been some big gaps and big moves to the upside on Bob's chart in the past. And recently, we've actually seen a perfect double bottom right around $80.30. And ever since then, we've been really powering back up with some of these China plays. That JD report this morning was really, really helpful. Or that JD report last week was really helpful for us to, get that good momentum here back to the upside. And I'm really happy to see the China stocks up. But whenever we go to the earnings chart, Mike, there's so many reporting this week. Target and Walmart are reporting, so we have some pretty big retailers on that front. Home Depot is a pretty big, safe haven out there as well. C Limited, a lot of people watch, so that'll be tomorrow morning with SE. I know a lot of people have been loving them, and we even have good old Cisco there on Wednesday and after hours. So, like you said, quite the lineup here. My favorite for the week is actually going to be Target, Mike. I feel like Target's been really, really low lately. And I feel like that, with prices and stuff like that being higher, I feel like we're going to see maybe some good numbers come out of them. And, earnings have been so 50-50 lately, but some of the stocks, when they run, they really start to go lately.
Of course you picked the boring stock Target. I'm looking at these China stocks, Tom. I know a lot of people look at China stocks and they just tend to stay away from them, and I can understand that for sure. But I'll tell you, I love to see this intraday movement with Baidu and Baba because, they actually had a pretty consistent uptrend all day long, and 6% isn't anything to ignore.
Yeah, it's really not. Like those stocks are really going. Baba is actually right at a huge resistance right now, $88.50, which was the high from last week. I love this as a potential play for tomorrow. If we're able to like break above that with some good momentum in the morning, that could be maybe a good play to the upside, especially whenever we go look at that daily chart of Baba. Just it looks so attractive. And we actually had some big money getting in, Mike. It looks like, back on May 11th, just a few days ago, of course, right by the bottom, right? We had the big money getting $1.7 million of those Baba 90 strike calls. They're a little bit out of the money right now, but I will say those might be actually a pretty good one to follow. They do expire in November, so they have some time, but if they're expecting a couple months of run up, those would be like the perfect price options right now for, a big move to the upside over the next few months.
No doubt. So yeah, definitely keep that close on your watch list. But there was also some very interesting news today coming from CNBC, where basically a very famous hedge fund manager, Paul Tudor Jones, who has like a net worth of around $7.5 billion, said the Fed is done raising rates, and he predicts stocks to finish the year higher from here. So it's definitely a bold statement coming from a very influential person. The market's been running pretty fiercely over the past couple weeks and months, and it's definitely a bold statement, especially considering like when you look at the market or any of these big tech stocks, it's easy to make a statement like that when the market's down, let's say 25 or 30%, but it's like, when you have like Apple and Nvidia and just the S&P 500 so close to its highs, it's like, that's a pretty ballsy statement right there.
Yeah, it really is. And I know that it's a pretty ballsy statement. And what's weird is like we look at stuff like Apple, like a stock like that, it's all the way up around highs. And, I could see it probably pulling back a little bit. And what was even more interesting, whenever I started going through here, I actually saw something where he said that the upcoming debt crisis, them having to maybe get us out of a potential default situation, obviously that's going to cause some panic in the market potentially. And he actually said throughout this article that he'll be looking to buy the dip right here, buy the dip on the political volatility, which I thought was very interesting, Mike. So that means like in the short term, he might be looking for a bit of a dip, but over the course of the rest of the year, heading up into the end, obviously towards those, months where people start to really buy a lot for Christmas and stuff like that, we're going to start to maybe see a move back up. And with this big dip coming, I don't know how much he's talking about, but man, I think the SPY could maybe come to 400 or even a little bit lower, especially with how overextended we are. But that is a huge statement, Mike. And it's just crazy to say with some stocks so high. But then again, on the other end of the spectrum, we do have quite a amount of stocks that are low as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest like black swan event right now is the debt ceiling. If the debt ceiling does not get raised, that will create a ginormous problem. But the good news is that we've been in a lot of situations like this before, and it has always worked out fine in the past. Of course, that doesn't mean that it's guaranteed to be all sunshine and rainbows this time, but, it definitely is a pretty big risk that I think everyone needs to have, just in the back of their mind for like the next couple weeks.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't even have to happen. Like we don't even have to go into a default. It's just the fear heading up into this is going to be scary. And I know like in the past, it's gotten down to the wire before where people just got down to the single day, even hours before, we were going to have some bad situations start to happen. Stuff finally got signed. So if stuff like that happens and it maybe takes a while, there could be some panic there. And keep that in mind. And I will say, Mike, the TNX had quite the move up today. Seems like TLT might be back on the downtrend here over the next week or so.
Uh-oh. What's also interesting is that today we have a fresh new set of data coming from a lot of these hedge funds, and everyone knows good old Warren Buffett, Warry Buffet, actually basically made some decent sized moves this quarter. What was interesting is that a lot of us already know this, but Warren Buffett is a pretty big fan of Apple. It basically equals out to just a little bit under half of his portfolio, which is absolutely insane. It looks like he has like 100 and basically $51 billion position in Apple, so that's pretty crazy. And he actually added like I think 20 million shares this quarter, so that's a decent amount, but percentage wise, it's nothing too crazy. Tom, it looks like he was selling off some of his General Motors though, and even Chevron, which was pretty interesting in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't even have it on the report, but I also saw he was getting rid of BYD, which is his EV position. So he's getting rid of BYD, General Motors. We see McKesson's actually reduced by 19.81% there. So interesting to me to see that. But whenever I do look through here a little bit more, he did add 8.93% to his Oxy position, even though he got rid of Chevron. So maybe he's starting to add more, to bring Oxy up to that maybe same percentage of the portfolio, for example. But it's interesting to see what he's doing here, with these changes. And I really think it's also interesting that he's, adding some of these things like HPQ. I know that that's a very interesting tech stock. If we go to that daily chart of HPQ, Mike, I noticed it was actually very, very low right now. And we've actually seen, some flow coming in lately over the past few months. I know that one expired now, but we have seen some, and it's pretty good to see this stock starting to uptrend a little bit more towards this resistance too.
All right, there we go. Well, with that being said, let's get right into some setups for tomorrow. One stock I've been hawking lately is Zoom. A lot of you guys already know this one because I talk about it quite a bit. But this stock is very oversold on the daily. It has had some really solid momentum lately, which is awesome to see. We're in a little bit of like a pre-earnings run-up setup. They report earnings next week, but they're up almost 4% today. So I'm going to have a very close eye on Zoom to the upside going into tomorrow. Even though today was somewhat choppy, Zoom basically ran up all day long.
Yeah, it really did. That was a huge green candle on the daily chart. And Zoom recently got pretty close to $60. If we actually go back over here, Zoom's all-time low is right around like 59 and some change. So to see them bouncing really close to that all-time low is awesome. And they're starting to really get some good momentum. So I like them as well, Mike. This was actually one of my favorite stocks to watch throughout the day today. It was on my radar almost all day long. One that I just have to mention is Oramed Pharmaceuticals. This stock had some great news out of China today, with like a phase 3 study or something like that with their pill. It's actually an insulin pill that they're making to kind of, take the place of the insulin shots for diabetics and other situations like that. So very interesting stock. And Ben Shapiro recently put almost $5 million into this stock. So I think it's a very interesting one. Ben Shapiro also just got on the board. And then what does this stock do, Mike? Just a week later, it has this good China news, and it, what was it up this morning? I think like 20% plus at highs. It closed at 10.6, but man, it hit highs almost up around 4 today.
No, it was closer to up 30%, Tom. The stock was booming. So either way, keep this one close on the radar because, Ben Shapiro dumped a couple million into this one too.
Yeah, it has. That's a big move to the upside. And man, it did get really close to $4 today. So watch it. It's had a lot of volatility.
All right, another one I'm watching pretty closely is KWEB. This is basically a bunch of China stocks all in one, and you don't have to like these stocks for the long term, but for the short term, you cannot deny that they have some pretty serious momentum going on right now. So this ETF was up around 6%, and overall, there's just a lot of good activity and momentum with all these China stocks. So I'm going to keep KWEB close on my watch list to the upside for tomorrow.
Yeah, and what I love about this is it's like at the bottom of like this little channel that it's been in over the past couple months or few months. And what I love is that we're getting this good momentum coming in, but we're not like up around highs like we were like in March. Like we're not like bouncing off like a big resistance level or anything like that. We're getting some good momentum off of this lower support. So I definitely feel like that there's room to go with a few of these China stocks for sure. Baba has been one of my favorites, of course. They're just one of my favorites in the short term. As we all know, I'm not a big fan of them over the long term, but I couldn't go without mentioning MU today, Mike, up 6.11%. Pretty good stock today, chip stock, semiconductor. A lot of these stocks ran up today with the AI news. Now, I know MU had some news of its own, But looking at the stock, it's sitting right on a key resistance, right around 65. If we're able to break above this over the next few days, I think MU could get a serious move back, maybe a good retest of 74 or even 75 up here if you want to, get really risky with a hold. But hey, if we start to break this big level that we rejected at ever since it looks like August of 2022, I feel like this one could definitely start to go.
All right, there we go. Well, with that being said, let's get right into the momentum plays for tomorrow. With the first one, we have NIO to the upside.
Neo, one of our favorites there. I love this one. Go ahead and make them break out above $8.30 there, just above the high of day.
All right, with the next one, we have Apple, and this one is to the downside.
Yeah, AAPL, I will say they were pretty weak today, given that there was a lot of bigger tech stocks moving up and stuff like that. Go ahead and make them break under 171.40, just under those wicks from today.
All right, and then with the last one, we have Amazon, and we need both directions.
Yeah, AMZN very choppy throughout the day here, just like the market. Go ahead and make them break under 109.20, just under 110. I like that as a play to the downside. They did close up pretty high, though. Can't lie there. If they break up above 111.60, then watch for some calls.
Sounds good. So we have that upside level for Amazon. If it breaks above that, we're watching it for calls. We have that downside level as well. So if it breaks below that, we're watching it for puts. Don't forget about Apple with that downside level as well. And then don't forget about NIO with that upside level too. But we also have some pretty exciting big money activity today where we saw $1.3 million go into FIS. So long story short, someone dumped $1.3 million into the FIS 55 strike call options that expire on July 21st of 2023. This stock has been getting clobbered over the past year. Right now, the stock is sitting right around $55 a share. It has highs of $158 that it made back in February of 2020, but it's basically been lingering right around that $150 level all the way towards like the end of 2021. So it's pretty oversold on the daily chart. These call options are right at the money. They have a little bit of time to them as well. So this is a bullish trade where essentially the big money is betting that this stock will rise. The more it rises, the more millions they'll make. And Tom, I don't think it's looking too bad.
Yeah, I don't either. It's out to July, so it's pretty close, on that. We don't have to wait like a couple years or anything. And when you go out to that daily chart and you really scroll back to those highs, it has really taken a nosedive, Mike. I mean, this thing's been really falling off. I feel like that in the short term, there could definitely be maybe like a good move, maybe even a test of like this gap again. That would be amazing if this stock could get maybe up above 60, maybe even 65 or 70. That would be awesome as this one starts to recover back. And I think that this is pretty awesome. In the short term, it's the 55 strike calls. It's a good strike. So I think it's even a good strike to follow. It's in the money a little bit. And that really gives me more confidence that they're not shorting it either. It's in the money and it's a lot of money in there. So it seems like a pretty good play. Now, I'm not too familiar with Fidelity National Information Services themselves, but just looking at the chart and the price action, I do like it for a potential play based on that.
Yeah, I mean, they're in the fintech industry, and we all know how these bank stocks and basically everything related to the financial industry has been struggling over the past couple months and honestly over just the past year. But we have seen a lot of good bullish price action with like regional bank stocks today. So if you look at like KRE, a lot of those, just stocks in that industry have been booming up intraday today, which is always a good sign and, helps all stocks in the industry.
Oh, thank God. Yeah, I looked at Pac West. That was the first one I thought of when you said regional banks moving up. Yeah, 17%. Not a bad one there today by any means. So yeah, keep your eyes on FIS. I feel like that, it could definitely start to trend back up after this recent downtrend. And it's also just one of those situations where I feel like, the big money in this case, I don't feel like they're necessarily waiting for like a big event or anything like that. I think it's just natural price action. And I think that they might just be looking at the banking sector overall rather than, like I said, waiting for some big event. Almost like if we were looking at like a pharmaceutical stock, you might say, well, maybe they're expecting some FDA approval or something like that. But with this one, I think it's just, the overall banking sector.
There we go. Well, Tom, we can't end the video without talking about the schedule for the week. So fill us in.
Yeah, the economic schedule here. We have a lot of speakers. We saw some today. I saw some headlines from Barkin. I saw some from Bostic as well. But I didn't see anything that necessarily, made the market like make or break today. I'll say I will be watching it more tomorrow and the next few days. It looks like tomorrow Bostic speaks. He speaks twice actually. Once at 7 p.m. Eastern and once at 8:55 a.m. Eastern too. Pretty specific on that one, but interesting there. Just lots of speakers this week. Just be prepared. They could say something that could move the market at any time if, they say anything drastic. We are also going to get retail sales tomorrow morning before the open as well at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. So that should be pretty big. I will say though, Mike, the big speaker I saw was Friday. Powell's going to be speaking at 11 a.m. So I think that's going to be the biggest one of the week.
All right, there we go. Well, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. When you subscribe, you'll see our videos recommended to you more often. And last but not least, giant shout out to today's member of the day, which is Hee in the YouTube comments. You've been commenting on our videos for quite a while, and you haven't gotten a shout out in a while either. So huge shout out to you. Thank you so much for all of the support. Besides that, thank you guys so much for watching, and let's have an amazing week.